Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the workshop of the County Commissioners for December 20th. And while you guys are speaking, I will have to ask you to pull the mics right to your mouth as close as possible, and then be sure you pass them around. So first of all, we have Benefits Advisory Committee. Welcome. It's actually good to see a committee here. I appreciate that. So with that, I'll let you go ahead, Tyson.
Me now.
Yep.
All right, there we go. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us concerning the 3 days of holiday that we saw a change to in this year. I would like kind of start and say thank you, all three of you, for the raises that we've seen this year. I know that was greatly appreciated by everybody, and I appreciate the time that you guys put into that and to making that happen. So as a committee, we have met with members of the county employees, and they have asked us to bring some concerns forward, and we will do that. So the concern is being the 3 days of holiday that were removed from county employees going into 2022. I think some of the issues with that we saw, at least that I experienced as a supervisor in my department, and other supervisors I've talked to, is it was a bit of a shock. Most information that I've heard, they did not see that coming. The issue with that being is a couple things. And I think you guys have all the paperwork that we printed out in front of you. Actually, Laurel did a good workup, and it actually ends up turning into a 1.3% cut in pay with Exhibit B, as you can see that. That was utilizing public health's numbers and salaries. We did that as an example, but there's obviously that concern. Some of the other concerns that we saw is, or that we heard about from the employees, was the feeling, both from a mental health standpoint of what they go through every day when you're talking about law enforcement, social services, the health department, the work these people are putting in. Those 3 days with their family meant a lot. I can tell you, as going on almost 19 years with the county, with the sheriff's office, that calendar had stayed relatively the same, with the exception of the one change we saw a couple years ago, but had stayed relatively the same. Now, understanding that the county has obviously fiscal obligations, and understanding that this doesn't have any fiscal change other than most likely it would be an increase because people are in the buildings, the lights are on, that sort of thing, using paper and different things, then there is some fiscal change there, as would be more like a normal day versus a day that we weren't there. One thing I think that I heard, and I do agree with, is the county has a relatively high attrition rate anyway, around 20 to 25%, as we've talked in the countywide, as we've talked about in the benefits committee meetings and talked about with you guys. I think that those 3 days really show the employees of the county how valued they are. Understanding we are in a service industry, and our doors open, obviously people take advantage of county services, but I think that from an employee standpoint, that those 3 days really mattered. Now, there's a couple options on the table that we've talked about that were brought to us as the benefits committee, about possibly being able to rotate those holidays, in the sense that maybe trading some for the ones that were taken away, the Christmas Eve, Thanksgiving, day after Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, or also approaching the possibility of doing a trade for 1.5 of them back. So that's the ask that we're bringing forward to you today. Those are the concerns from the employees. As far as how those 3 days made them feel, the perception, I think the big perception was that nobody saw this coming. Now, we know that you guys discuss this stuff in the work sessions on Monday and it's voted on Tuesday. I can be honest, I was as surprised by this as anybody. I think in the future going forward, big changes that affect stuff like this with employees, I think it's a good idea. We can work with the benefits committee to get that information out to where people don't feel as shocked by this as they did. But those are some of the concerns that were brought forward that we wanted to relay to you guys. I think, again, employee satisfaction is a big one. And again, not taking away from what you all did on raises. I think that I can speak confidently for the entire county when that was appreciated by everybody. We all appreciate that. But we know we do have a relatively high attrition rate for the county. And to be honest, those 3 days mattered. So we would like to see if there's room for negotiation for maybe a day and a half back, or if there's room to talk about this again through the benefits committee in 2022.
Sure, I'll go. Go next. So, as as a member of the benefits committee, we are tasked with communicating back to you gentlemen. So that is what I'm doing here today. And I want to kind of touch on what Tyson was talking about. I think communication was one of the biggest blows in this decision. This is what I'm hearing and relaying back to you. I've been in leadership and management positions for over 18 years of my 27 years in the workforce. I know that for me, one of the keys to being a successful and trusted leader is communicating with my team. Communication about the good, the bad, the ugly, the unpopular. Sometimes simply being heard changes everything. I want to point out, and not just to the BOCC, but also to administration, that BOCC meetings should not be the only vessel of communication for our employees. Nor should the burden be placed on those who watch the meetings or have time to watch the meetings to act as communicators of important decisions like this about employee benefits. I think that's probably the wound that needs to be healed the most in this. Decisions like this, at the very least, should come through the benefits committee, if simply not just for communication. Most county employees I know are very thankful for their jobs and are very proud to serve the communities that we live in. We are here to serve the communities, which we can all attest comes with many challenges and stressors. Not everyone in the community understands and appreciates the dedication it takes to work for a rapidly changing government and fighting to represent our rural community values every single day. You gentlemen are tasked with representing and answering to over 27,000 people who may have an issue with county employees having too many holidays. When I am confronted with this, I try to remind people that are talking about this that this is not the old-fashioned cushy government job it may have been in the past. Most departments are seeing a much higher rates of the problems that plague their lines of work, which come with huge feelings of hopelessness at times. And most of those departments, I would actually guess that all of those departments are doing much more with less resources to support our community. So I implore you to really think about this. If nothing can be done about it this year, next year, communicating with our employees on some form, whether that's a survey, whether that's send us your ideas about holidays for next year. Nope.
That's why we chose Tyson.
I think they said pretty much what I would say. Sorry. It's like they said, there's a lot of things that go on every day in our departments that people don't see. And I think the mental health part of it is a big one. A lot of people use those 4-day weekends to go see their family that don't live here. I know I do. And we won't be able to do that with, a day off and then not have anything without taking time off out of our own time. So I think that that's the other key to this is, you know, we look forward to those 4-day weekends so that we can regroup and see our families and look at our mental health while we're at it. So I think that's all I really want to say. They got the rest, I think. Thank you.
I agree with everything that these guys have said. And I mean, on a weekly basis down in social services, I'm not speaking for every department, we have to call Shaq, we have to call Jim McClain, we have to call Jim Spratlin. It's a stressful job everywhere. I mean, the clerk's office everywhere, the buses, everywhere. We have these people that come in that are, what's the word? Not intoxicated. Well, intoxicated, but agitated and intoxicated. And we really do need these days. I mean, we get cussed out every single day on the phone. I know I've heard it from you guys too, that you get cussed out every day too, emails cussing you out. But we are seriously hands-on with these people, and we really do need these extra days off. And like they said, you know, being able to have Thursday off for Thanksgiving, go out of town, you know, go to Grand Junction, go wherever, we can't do that now. And if we all try to take our vacation time to take it, then they're going to have to pick and choose who gets to go and who has to stay. And that's not really fair either. Then if you call in sick, then you're going to be in trouble for using your sick leave to cover that time off. So, yeah. I just hope that you guys will think about this. And, you know, employees have been here a long time and have depended on the extra time off. So we just hope that you'll think about it.
I didn't just forget it. And I just forgot it, I'm sorry. From there to here, it's gone.
You can move the mic back and forth anytime you choose.
Okay, I think, yeah. Yeah.
I think that's our ask, gentlemen. Is it possible to reconsider this? Is there room to negotiate for something different? Either going into 2022 or looking forward. That's our ask.
We're always open for talk.
Yeah, that's the ask, not just from all of us, but from hundreds of employees.
Well, let me
I just
address
wanna
a
ask
couple
that.
of things, first of all. And then I agree with Commissioner Lindsay. I said it too, looking at every face out there, probably captured me downstairs the other day. I said I'm always open to a conversation or a dialogue. What I'm not open to is being brutalized on Facebook or social media. I am not open to that.
That hurts. That hurt.
So I will tell you right now that's, when you push this into a corner, you're going to be probably unsuccessful. So let me just make that out there. We're talking about communication, let me communicate. Okay? Communication goes both ways, Laurel, I agree. Like I said, it's nice to actually see a benefits committee up here with some people that are actually talking to us. Because the last couple, let me finish.
Yeah, I'm like, we've been a benefits committee for a long time.
Let me finish. You have been here actively every time, and I'm not pointing a finger at you or anybody else. It's just nice when every department is supposed to have a representative to come here to talk to us and nobody shows up. What message are you sending to us? That you really don't care is what it sends to me. Whether that's incorrect, that's what it sends to me. So I agree that communication goes both ways.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I would agree.
So-
I'm just saying that Billy, Tyson, myself, and Jen have been.
I
Yep.
didn't
Okay.
say everybody.
Okay.
I said every department has a representative on this
Absolutely.
committee, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. I have not seen a representative from every department within this
Correct.
county.
Do we have
So-
somebody from every department though? Because I don't think we've. ever had.
I was told that I am covering for like CPS and we're all like one. Is
Okay.
that not true?
I will agree with you. We used to be a lot larger, and we have shrunk, and I would agree that it would
Okay.
be really nice as a member of the benefits committee to have more employees. I
So
will
maybe
agree with
this
that.
communication is helping to say, look, we're going to make decisions based on what's handed to us. So this gets voted on every year. So for you guys to say, we were not aware that this was even going to be voted on, that everybody has been here for several years, is it just an entitlement that you think it's going to happen, or we get stuff that's handed to us every year, what we're looking at to get voted on? So that's just a clarification.
Right.
You don't have to speak yet. Let me finish, and then I'll give you your chance back. You know, Tyson, you talked about the attrition rate. Not once in that survey that we sent out earlier did it say anything about days off for attrition, and correct me if I'm wrong, about that at all. So it said.
No, it
this
didn't.
thing on there, so when you say that, and we send out a survey to ask those questions, that's not what it came back to us at. So I'm a little,
So I'll challenge you, I guess, I'll challenge you on one point. That survey was geared toward dependent care coverage through insurance. It really wasn't geared towards anything else.
I understand that, but at the end of it, it said that you could comment on anything, right? Didn't we have that section in there that said, this is what we're looking at, here's what, and then the survey you gave through us for attrition rate, which
Right.
was just your department, not everybody else's department.
Right.
That's what we were looking at. The benefits committee is where it came through, and that's what the survey came to us at. That was the data that we were given. So,
Correct.
okay? And then a loss of pay. And is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but nobody's losing a penny.
Well,
So
it's,
you are losing a benefit,
A
I will
benefit.
agree, for the time off. However, as a loss of pay, it's not a loss of pay. And yes, I will agree, it costs us the same amount if you're here or if you're not. Nobody's going to dispute that. So, anyway, go
Okay.
ahead.
yeah, so we can start with a loss of pay. I mean, we are gauging that on what people are paid hourly because they're getting that 6, 7, or 8 hours of pay without having to use their own time. So that's the way that was derived from, is we are looking at, now we're using our time to take that day off or not taking that time off at all. So that's what I was asked to do when we figured that out. So using average cost of what it would cost for
Correct, and this
us
was
to
for the
pay.
health department, this
Right.
is not countywide.
Right.
So where's the rest of the departments countywide? How do they fit into this?
I can't answer that, because I just did it for what numbers I had available. So,
Okay, so
Yeah.
Kelly, you're representing the social services, where do you guys fit into this mix?
I thought they were doing that just as a general baseline to show you guys is what it's just a general to show you that it was a loss of pay
It's a loss of a benefit, it's not a loss of
and a
pay.
benefit. Well, it's a benefit, yeah.
Okay.
But if you're not getting paid for that holiday, you gotta use your vacation time or your sick leave. So, I mean, it is a loss of,
Hopefully
I
you're
mean, the
using sick
10-hour
leave for
employees
just
in
sick
this
leave.
county have already been using their vacation or sick time.
So, anyway, I'm gonna stop, I'm gonna let these two guys, those were just some notes that I wrote down as you guys were talking.
well, and I do want to clarify, we did put it was a 1.31 loss of a benefit, not pay, just of a benefit. The survey, I'll be the first to tell you, that survey needs to be more thorough. It really was, it does. I think if we are going to do a survey on our employees, to truly gauge how they feel about their jobs or their position, it definitely needs to be more detailed. And I think we should do that. I think we should implement something like that at some
And I
point.
would agree, that's called communication.
Correct.
So, when we were looking at that, and I'll go back to that, the benefit portion of it, because of the loss of attrition, it wasn't that high. If I remember right, it was like 24%. Was that about right? Of the survey that we got to review, that's why we're like, okay, we're not gonna look at that, we're gonna look at the pay end of it first, and we're gonna try to fix this, and then we'll work on these other things, depending on how we can fix dollars and cents. So, I know that you people think that we just arbitrarily made this decision without any thought, without anything else into it, and that's incorrect. So,
Right.
from where we're standing, or where we're sitting, and I'm talking for myself, I can't talk for these two gentlemen, I'll let them speak for themselves. We spend a year discussing this back and forth with you all, or with the people that have shown up, and trying to figure out, okay, what's the best thing to do to fix it first? And based on that survey, it's fix the pay first. That is what it said to me, loud and clear, fix the pay first. So that is what we focused on, and we focused on it all year, and that's what we tried to achieve.
Sure.
So I'm going to stop with that, and I'm going to let these two gentlemen.
Well,
If you have
I
any-
just want to add one thing really quick, is we definitely appreciate the work with the pay. I think from an employee standpoint, they're struggling in a lot of areas, right? As far as other counties, we're relatively lower paid, and I can speak for my department specifically in that. We don't have, and it's a funding issue. We don't have dependent care coverage that is even close to remotely affordable. I think the day that this happened, it was, and this is an impression on my part in talking to the people that, at least that I've talked to, is we can't do dependent care coverage this year, and we're going to take away 3 of your holiday days. And the perception on that, and we all know that perception's reality sometimes, is, okay, we're just cogs in somebody's wheel and we really don't matter. I believe that was the perception. Now, I know all 3 of you separately from this. I know that that's not your personality. But I think that was the perception that caused the stir that everybody has seen out of this. And that's my opinion.
So what is the reason that you guys took them?
We did a survey of other employers in the county, and Montezuma County had the most days off of almost any employer in the county.
Do those employers have to deal with the drug addicts, the
We
Yes,
looked at
they
every
do.
other
the parents
county.
coming in, having
Yes,
their
they
children
do.
taken away, and
You walk up and down the street and you talk to these employees in any of these businesses. They're dealing with drugs, mental health, people that are coming in drunk. The pressures of inflation are killing us. The employers, I can name you 5 off the top of my head that are getting ready to close their doors, which is going to impact you even more.
So let me,
And the pressure is spread across a broad spectrum, not just in your departments. The people out here in this community who, along with the rest of you that are paying these property taxes, the more businesses that go out, the less property taxes we have to collect. And that's going to affect our bottom line. And if I'm not mistaken, each day that we give you, that's the wrong term, that each day that you guys take off costs the county somewhere in the neighborhood of $68,000. That's per day.
why
And that might be wrong.
when we get paid
Because it's a paid day. And
Well,
that's
if
what
you're-
it costs per day.
I think what he's saying is if you're here producing,
Yeah.
which you're actually serving the public, which is what we are, a service organization. But let me go back and answer your first question. So when we did this salary survey that was sent out, and we used Montrose County, we used La Plata County, because obviously we compete with La Plata County probably the most, because it's a neighboring county, however, almost twice as big as we are. They're at about 56, 57,000, and we're about 27,000. So it's hard to compete with a county that big, first of all. So even by your sheet, we did reach out to La Plata, Montrose, Empire Electric, the local people here, to do, like, what are they doing? And that was a discussion that we had to say, well, then let's just go with the national holidays. Why are we doing all of these extra holidays? So it was a discussion that was had in here a couple of times. Now, I know that you say you weren't aware of that, the discussions happened. And then we just said, okay, you know, where do you start changing, swapping, what do you do? And we just said, let's just stay with the 10 national holidays. There has been one added now. Like I said the other day down there, apparently now Juneteenth is actually considered a new federal holiday. So here's the only thing that I would be every holiday is going to, whether it's Columbus Day or President's Day or whatever, it has some significance to somebody somewhere. So when you start moving those around or start allowing one to swap for here or there, it just creates a political shitstorm for us. They're like, well, why did you do that? So I would be, there are 11 now with Juneteenth added in there, which was added in this year. To maybe allow one back. But I think, I just think that if we're staying with the national holidays, why? Why do you need more?
Well, we just got an email right before we came up from EBT.
From who?
EBT, which is our debit cards, for the food debit cards. They aren't in the offices. I mean, if we have issues with CBMS, EDMS, EBT, any of that, they aren't in the offices on those days. Day after Thanksgiving,
All banks are open on the day after Thanksgiving, right? Is that, all banks are not open?
oh, I don't know about the banks. I'm just talking about if we're here working and we have issues with CBMS, EDMS, EBT, they're not there. They send us the emails out, we will not be here this day, this day, this day. It's the days that we had off. So, I mean, if we're here, what are we going to be doing if we have issues?
I would hope there's a lot of things that you guys could be doing on every day. I read that in there saying that you're going to have nothing, or let me not say that.
Because before holidays, the girls have all of their caseloads caught up so that they can be off those days. Everybody that's turned in their benefit paperwork, it's all completely done before those days.
So you are saying that you are going to be truly productive, or how many county employees are going to be truly productive working on a day that is sandwiched between a holiday and a weekend? So I would hope that our county employees are truly productive every day that they.
Well, we are. They get their work done ahead of
Why are you saying that
time.
you're not going to be productive?
I'm just saying they always get all their case work done before a holiday. Every bit of their cases are caught up and done before the holiday. So even if they're off,
I hate to cut you guys short, but we're really on a tight schedule. I've got 2 other people that we've got to talk to by Zoom, one at 2 and one at 2:30. So the dialogue is open. We've heard it. We've got your information here.
We just done a survey on where we're trying to get a sales tax to try to offset the cost of the losses that the county's taking right now. And there's 1 million people out there that say we are not spending their money good right now. They won't vote for a sales tax. If we don't get that sales tax, losing 3 days this year is going to be nothing compared to what's going to happen next year. If we don't replace Kinder Morgan's in the loss from the private property taxes in a year. I don't know what we'll do next year. But most of the community already thinks we're not spending their money correctly, so.
Can I just say one thing?
But
Sure.
we're trying
I'm
hard.
watching the clock, so I will
Trying
cut us
hard
off
to
on.
educate the community of why we need that sales tax here. We've lived off the backs of the private property owners and Kinder Morgan for far too long. We have got to figure out a way to replace that.
I just want to say one thing. You were saying that there's not any difference between working and not working. There is. And the reason I say that is you got heaters running, you got lights running, you got paper being used, you've got all that stuff. So technically, it's costing the county money to have the people here because everything's on. I just wanted to put that out there because that's, you wanting to save money, that's great, but it's not.
We're not looking, it's a service to the public.
Right.
We are a service organization, and that's what we do. There could be a lot of people that could only get that Friday because they are off, maybe, I don't know, but to have the opportunity to come in to get some things done that they can get done. We have to look at it from every aspect,
Right.
guys.
And I understand that.
You're not underappreciated. I know that you wrote that in there, that you didn't feel appreciated at all. And that is not a fact. I know the decision that was made, how that perception is, the perception becomes reality. Understand that. So, again, the dialogue is open. We will continue the dialogue.
Okay.
But today,
And please try to get somebody from each,
I would like to see the benefits
Yeah.
committee
Benefit,
full
yeah.
every time instead
would
of
be nice.
seeing.
because that is our
couple of
communications
people.
back to everybody.
Yep.
is-
So to say that there's no communication.
Well, I mean, as far as this went,
Okay.
as far
Well,
as
let
these
me-
holidays.
Let me just let you guys know that this is something that has to be voted on every year, so this should not come as a surprise to anybody that next year when it gets handed in our lap, that it's gonna have to be voted on next year,
Perfect.
okay?
Yep.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We'll be back
All right.
next year.
Thank you, guys. Okay, Laura Shack is next.
Next is Laura with Region 9.
Good afternoon, Laura. You are on. Can't hear a check.
Should.
So, can you hear me all right?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you now.
Okay. I think I'd to talk about the opportunity for Region 9 to integrate with the Council of Governments. And I don't know how much information you have, but Miriam had put in her notice in late November. She's going to work for a telecom company remotely, so she'll be staying in the area, but it is a DC company. I don't know the specifics, but her last day was actually Friday the 17th. And she will be continuing to work 5 hours a week for the first quarter of next year to help with the transition. But obviously this came up really quick, and we had been meeting regardless and before she was leaving, because we try not to step on toes and we work well together. And so we came up with a transition plan that we proposed to the COG board. And basically there were three options. One was the COG could hire a new executive director and move forward as they had been. One was to integrate with Region 9, and one was to dissolve the organization. Excuse me, I'm making it quieter in here. They decided they wanted to look at pursuing integration with Region 9. And I picked that word specifically because we had done a couple of studies. Jim may have been involved, or other board members with Montezuma County, that we looked at aligning previously. And both of the boards were not in favor of that at that time. Initially, the COG did start with Region 9 in 2010, and then about 5 years later, it decided to be a separate organization, and that was their board decision, and that was fine. But because they are, they're really small and they haven't been able to be sustainable, and they have Miriam and one other staff member, and they're really dependent on dues and grant funding, as you guys know. And so we want to try to bring them closer in alignment with Region 9. If you're familiar with other regions in the state, they all are COGs and economic development districts or economic development organizations as one organization. Some of them have a government arm and a nonprofit arm. and they still have 2 boards. Some actually have 1 board. So Region 10, to our north out of Montrose, they have 1 board, but they're a COG and an economic development district. Region 8 has 2 boards. They're in the San Luis Valley. And so we really are kind of the odd man out, so to speak, that we have 2 organizations. So in a nutshell, I feel like we need to do this. I know it'll be a little rough. I'm not saying it'll be all smooth sailing, but my plan, and again, this isn't gone to my board per se, though I did involve the executive committee in the initial talks. We're looking at having a services agreement with the COG on the services that we would do for them, and we would keep everything status quo in 2022, meaning, we're not going to do any merging. They're going to have their same benefit package, staff, they're going to have their same board, all of that will move forward, because to be honest, I need that runway to figure out how we can better align and what things we can combine. I'll stop talking unless you guys have specific questions, or I can keep going.
Go ahead. This is Kent, Lindsay. I think integration is the way to go. I see sometimes the COG and Region 9 have duplication of services, and I think this would streamline things a lot more.
We definitely have, it's another board that you guys have to be on.
Well,
yes.
and I'll speak, Laura, too, because obviously we're very active with Region 9 and the board, but we are not members of the COG at all. We've just stayed away from that portion of it. One is because a lot of things that we felt are duplicated, and there was no reason to pay X amount to that. So my question is the fiscal note. What is the fiscal note? Is that going to add to what we have to submit now? Or what is the fiscal note to this county going to be?
So we're making no changes because the COG's already approved their budget for 2022. So the current COG members can be the current COG members, and those dues will remain separate, because I just don't have enough time to figure out how to cut costs for the COG at this point in time. I know that we can, we should only have 1 liability insurance policy. We should only have 1 set of staff, things like that. But I don't want to lose the 1 staff member that the COG has. I want to work with, where they are at, and that would be Jessica. She does the transportation and the transit. So really, I would be stepping in to oversee the COG and make sure they're fiscally sound, make sure their programs are meeting their grant requirements. We would use some of Miriam's salary to hire a telecom coordinator, because that is something we've stayed completely out of, because that was the COG's, and I don't have the in-house expertise for that. So we would probably have a contractor. My goal is that in 2023, we would better align our dues. At this point in time, I know dues have been a huge issue for all the communities. So I don't know if it would be more of a, I just don't know at this point what it would look like. So there'd be no change in 2022 for the county, if that helps.
Okay. I guess where I'm, eventually there's going to be additional funding that you guys have to have for staffing, even if it's not in 2022, but going forward. Is that not correct? I guess, and maybe it's...
I'm sorry. I might need you to repeat that. I'm sorry.
I'm okay with the 2022 because they had already approved their budget. But the fiscal note going down the road is really where I'm more concerned, Laura. 2023, like you said, you don't have any more time, and it's going to take additional staff. And it gives us a year to kind of work it out, I guess. But if everything is okay for 2022, that's a discussion moving forward. I was just curious if you had what it was going to cost us in addition to our Region 9 dues right now. And it doesn't sound like for this year there's any. Okay.
No, no change at all. And I wish I could tell you 2023, but I believe because, our organization has some infrastructure already in place that the COG doesn't, that we should not be increasing dues at all. And I feel like that would be a disservice to all of the communities. So that's my goal. I want to combine the dues at some point, but honestly, there's two boards and they may want to stay, two different organizations, even if they have one director. So we're going to kind of build trust with them and hope that we can align. And I know cost savings is a goal for them as well, because they're chasing a lot of grants. We'll be able to end some of those grants this year, meaning that, we'll get them done, get them off our plate, and be more strategic with some of the grants, because I think Miriam, she was trying to sustain the organization, and there was a lot of mission creep, I believe.
Okay. Commissioner Singleton?
No, do you feel that this merger will be the best for our region? And
I really do. I know it's going to be rough. There's a lot of personalities involved. And I'm happy to make it as easy as possible. But all the other regions in Colorado have a COG and an economic organization as one. And so I feel like there's a lot of history. There's a lot of, other directors I can talk to. We can make it happen. I want to kind of take that this year to do that and figure out what the best format is. We don't want to lose the fact that it's a government that can apply for DOLA funds on behalf of the region, and Region 9 will kind of do what we do. And I don't want to impact my employees any more than I have to.
okay.
Good.
Any question?
No, Laura, if you just let us know what we can do to make the transition as easy as possible, and then as the membership dues discussion progresses, we'll need to be kept in the loop, because as Chairman Candelaria alluded to, we are not members of the COG, and the COG membership is 5 times what we pay to Region 9, and so
Right.
we're not looking to increase any of our bills 500%.
One thing that I am planning to do is have the COG meetings after the Region 9 meetings, so that two boards can kind of meet over lunch that we do with Region 9 right now. So hopefully there'll be some more symmetry and, collaboration with that. I have a feeling that we will align but still be somewhat individual, but I know there's economies of scale. We can share accountants. We can share, a lot of things. I just, honestly, because the COG board hasn't even approved the services agreement, I don't want to speak too out of tune or, out of place from what they've actually approved, but I think we can get this done, and it's definitely in the long run going to benefit the region.
Okay. Well,
Thank
then
you,
I guess
Laura.
we'll see you at the next board meeting.
Yes, and I'm happy to send you any additional information if you all need it, and I will be keeping the Region 9 board updated on the COG piece. So if any of you need more, you're not getting enough information, please let me know.
Okay.
Thank you,
And
Laura.
we
Thank
won't
you.
be July, I promise.
All right. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Have a great
Christmas.
day. All right. Next, we're going to jump down to the NCA discussion with Ken Curtis from DWCD. Ken.
Yes,
Afternoon.
can you guys hear me okay?
You bet.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Well, I'll jump right into where we're at, unless you had any questions to start with. I was just going to go over the status of our discussions.
I think we're good with listening to the status. Obviously, the last time we communicated, you gave us the letter that your attorney had sent in with the bullet points and the conversation you had around those. So I think we'll just jump right in there.
Okay, we have continued some meetings with the work group, and then we've actually spun off the last of our issues into a smaller group that we continue to work with them. Our next meeting is January 7th. From the big picture, we basically had about 5 issues. and we're kind of still wrangling with two of them. The advisory group, they seem very amenable to working with us on those comments, on getting appropriate representation from the local counties, particularly as to ranchers and ag. But they are still not willing to address our link of the purpose language to the follow-up protections. So actually, maybe before I get into those specifics, our big picture view of this is the NCA does remove the Wild and Scenic River name on the Lower Dolores. It does pull the Federal Reserve water right off the table. Historically, that's been a big concern for Colorado water users, but we actually have two in-stream flows from SWCCOG on the Lower Dolores, and any Federal Reserve water right would be a junior water right. So as much as that's been played up as a real bonus, it really doesn't bother us that much. What we do see as the benefits, they do get the specific environmental, recreational type protections that they are seeking. There's a whole lot of land use issues, and I know Dolores County is very interested in those for access and existing ranching uses and CO2 development. So the other benefit that the NCA language as drafted adds is it does recognize conditional water rights in the protections area. That's not a given under current federal law. So there are some pros and cons. But seeing as a Federal Reserve water right wasn't really scaring us, in some ways this is a wild and scenic without the name. It presumably would preclude a future national monument or some wilderness designation down below, and it's also assumed to help the ESA, although that probably relates more to the monitoring and recommendation team that will remain active and outside of this legislation. So then back to our request, in the purposes, right up front of this legislation, of course, the purpose is all about environmental and recreational issues. Those are important to the environmental community, and that's fine. That's protections they're seeking that would have been covered under a wild and scenic. I guess our problem is we're just trying to add in a subject to the specific protections in section 402, and they seem to think that that is not going to fly from the legislative writers. We still believe, because the historic farming and ranching and use of the water is not specifically in the purposes, we see that as a potential conflict, and we just want to clear it up. We don't think the existing working group is after any of these existing water uses and water rights, but we are writing this for posterity, therefore we want to make that linkage specific, and that's still under discussion. As I pointed out, the working advisory groups, they seem amenable to working with us on. They do seem to want to stick with native fish, as opposed to naming the specific fish of concern on the Lower Dolores. Presumably some additional native fish could become a concern down the road. Also, presumably, the use of the water isn't going to be any different for a different species of native fish. So that one doesn't appear to be changing, and our board hasn't fully evaluated that. When we get to some conclusion, presumably we'll evaluate everything in total and decide where DWCD wants to go. The largest issue remains upstream, call it interference from whatever ends up on the Lower Dolores. Clearly, as the the current status of suitability on the lower Dolores does bring in a section 7 language. That's how they evaluate any water development on the Dolores River. It might be above it, could be below it, could be on a tributary. Our poster or our example that we're using is we do still have Plateau Creek rights for both storage and pump back power. Obviously, it may be a long time until those develop. In a perfect world, we think if they get the protections they want, that they should release the upstream. It's not like any kind of large water development will not get a future review by multiple federal and state and local agencies. But they have this section 7 about not unreasonably diminish. And we're trying to work through how specific is unreasonably defined. And so far we haven't come to a conclusion. We've explored exempting small developments, and they do not seem to want to go along with that. There could be other things that happen up above. MVI currently has a water court issue going through. We don't want them involved in that any more than we don't think they should be involved in that. So that's the current big issue under discussion. As I said, we're meeting with them on January 7th. Presumably at some point in the not distant future, we'll at least understand each other's position and what they're willing to accommodate within the NCA language. And then we will be going back to our full board to hash out whether it's still positive or neutral or negative to us. Right now, I just summarize it as it's not that big a positive for us. And so if they want our support, we'd like a little bit of more clarity as to future abilities for us to develop these conditional rights, as conditional rights tend to change a lot as they go through a development process. Other than that, we think the primary controller on the water below McPhee is the McPhee Dam and the water rights, both senior MVI and junior Dolores project rights. Therefore, we don't see future development as being a significant impact, as the controls are already in place on the downstream water. So that's where it's at, and I suspect after January 7th, we'll see if we continue to meet or make any progress on these issues. And we'll give you something final after that January 7th meeting, probably after our board meeting in January.
Okay, so it kind of sounds like some of that language that we had discussed originally is still what's being debated or argued, specifically, you know, for the size of the large and small, and then the what was the term you used? Reasonably
Unreasonably diminish.
And I
Yes,
get
whether any upstream or other development would unreasonably diminish the NCA
So
purposes.
do they have a, well, it doesn't matter on that definition right now. I guess my question is, would it be more beneficial to us to join with these conversations as somebody signing in or on? Because right now the conversation's just been happening between San Miguel and Dolores counties and you all, correct?
That's correct. We're kind of a side discussion. We have met with the full working group once, but now we're in a subset talking about these very specific water issues.
Right. So the land use issues seem like they are pretty well protected from what you just stated, and obviously from the meeting we had with Dolores County for mining and grazing, anything else like that moving forward. That's pretty well protected. It's just the water that obviously would be the issue to you, and it's the issue to us. So, is it better, Ken, for us to sign in on this so that we are at that table to help with this discussion, or would it be a hindrance at this point in time?
Well, if you want to join the conversation, that would be fine with us. Right now, it's some of their working group, DWCD and Southwestern, because all we are focusing on are the water issues. And I did want to recognize that as we read the NCA, the land use provisions do seem positive, particularly for Dolores County. So we recognize that, and maybe at the end, that's what tips DWCD in being supportive of one of the counties that they work in. But still, they haven't given up much, if anything, on the water, and therefore we thought it ought to be a little bit clearer about future potential development than leaving it for some future evaluation of what's unreasonable. So-
Not really at this point. I don't think that I have much to add.
So there are, as we stated, there are pretty good specific protections. They don't have a linkage to the purposes. We perceive some future interpretation could be that even if there's a specific protection in the back, but somebody perceives it to not be supportive of the purpose statement, that's where we want that little bit of clarity that the purposes are subject to the specific protections, and their position is that's implicit in how you write legislation. It doesn't stop a future lawsuit in our opinion, but it may ultimately stand up, as they say. So I guess your position might be on what the land use issues mean for Montezuma County. And obviously, there isn't that much land in Montezuma County in this.
I know a couple of the concerns I had was in the unreasonable diminished wording, as who would make that final decision after the studies were done. I believe it should be up to that local committee to make those decisions, because somebody in Washington isn't going to know how that's going to affect. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's definitely delegated to the two secretaries, one Interior and Agriculture.
Right, and I don't think that's right. That should be back to the committee here. And then what is large and what is small, that should be just resolved by a number of acre feet or something in there, so that some later on down the road, we got everybody's got a difference there. So it should be figured out now.
And that was a specific request of ours, and there has not been a definition historically in legislation until this infrastructure bill that was signed a month or so ago. And it actually defines it between 5,000 and 30,000 acre feet. And we floated that concept and are currently rejected on that. So we tend to agree with you.
No, just if you Google the term unreasonably diminished, there is no definition.
And it's subject to a future
Right.
interpretation by somebody, as pointed out by the commissioner, probably in Washington.
Yep.
So it's absolutely subjective.
Right.
Well, this is what we talked about with the Board of Dolores County Commissioners the other day. That subjectivity is certainly scary.
That's what's got to be taken out is that. Otherwise, it's way too subjective.
So for whatever it's worth, if you sign on, you're stuck with the final product. If you don't sign on, you don't really have any power to control the definitions. So good luck in your decision.
Well, if you don't sign on, you're stuck with the decision anyway.
Yeah, you're stuck with
Well-
the decision
well,
either way.
That's true, but it won't necessarily encompass the 9 miles of Montezuma County if you don't sign on.
Correct. Okay. All right, Ken, I'm sure we'll have a future discussion. What time is that meeting on the 7th?
Let me see here. It's Friday the 7th. Looks like 10:30 to 12:30. Amber's setting it up, but I believe Dolores County's invited and some of the other working group members, along with ourselves in Southwest.
Okay.
It's primarily our attorney, myself, and Southwestern's general manager discussing these issues with them.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time, Ken. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Yeah. Merry Christmas to you guys, and yeah, anything you can add to get a little more flexibility on this would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you
Ken.
very much.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shaq.
So we're going to deviate from this agenda just a little bit, guys. I see the DA is here, so we're going to ask him to come ahead of you, Rachel. Forgive me, but they said they're only going to take about 45 minutes, so you can go hang out.
I figured out how to get the microphone on now, so.
Now you just have to pull it right to your mouth. Otherwise, they can't hear you, and we keep getting messages that we can't be heard, so.
I'm sorry, what?
Nice, Shaq. I'm a mumbler. Guys, what questions do you have for me this month? I will let you know that in taking a look at our overall case numbers, because we're getting towards the end of the year total, it's looking like we are going to have probably 50 to 60 more felony cases than we had in previous years if you just took an average. I think that a lot of that has to do with not just the court shutdown, but the various jail shutdowns. And so wanted to put that on y'all's radar that we are, there's a good bump in cases.
Matt, is that 50 to 60 more felonies committed, or they're just coming to trial this year when ordinarily they would have been in the previous year?
Yeah,
Oh,
committed.
okay.
So just new case numbers in general.
Okay.
That has been a strain on the office. We're working through it, and we're getting there. Obviously, now we are back in court in person. Thank you, commissioners, for your assistance in doing what you could to ensure that the court was open back up. That has helped us out quite a lot. I want to thank you guys again for your assistance with the jail situation and getting the jail open back up. That has helped us out quite a lot as well. So, first off, thanks, guys. Secondly, questions that y'all might have.
Gentlemen? I think for me, it's not really a question, it's more of a statement, but, and I know you guys are probably as frustrated as we are, but this backlog has got to get fixed. So-
For sure. And what you need to know is that the folks upstairs are working as hard as they can to clear that backlog. The only way we get through those cases, though, is going and trying the cases. I'll have a trial starting on January 10th. Our county court folks will have a number of different trials set in January, and I think Will's got one set too. I have to double check the time frame on that one, but it's at some point in January. And so the only way we're going to clear these is just by getting out there and doing them, and that's where we're at now. So this is the point at which we're looking forward to getting those done, and getting those cases resolved, and at least getting a verdict in those cases and getting those to the community. our system is a system in which ultimately there's two kinds of cases that go to trial. The first is a slam dunk for somebody that needs to go to the Department of Corrections for a lengthy period of time and wouldn't otherwise accept a plea because there's not one that's going to be offered to them that they'd want. And two, cases and controversies where there's two different sides to the story and the community needs to make a decision, and we're so happy that the folks in our community are up to the task of coming into court, sitting down, being on a jury. We almost never have anybody in jury selection that says, hey, I just plain don't want to do this. And that's credit to our citizens here in Montezuma County and also in Dolores County.
So if we got such a backlog on the docket and stuff, why do we focus so much on misdemeanor stuff?
So there's two different levels of our court system. The first is county court, and county court only handles misdemeanor cases. And so any case that you see on that list that has an M or a T associated with it, those cases are all in county court. We have one judge, Judge Lawrence, who handles the county court cases, and there's essentially a separate track for our misdemeanor cases and a track for our felony cases. And so our misdemeanor cases getting tried separately is just a function of that. We have two attorneys that are presently working in county court to clear those cases, but those, as you see, represent the majority of our cases. And remember, those are the cases that come to us. These are folks that got pulled over for a DUI. These are misdemeanor assaults. These are driving under revocation or suspended license type cases. And so those cases are all going to be heard in the same court by the same judge from start to finish. And so our misdemeanor cases are going to necessarily be separated from the felony cases. The felony cases, obviously, much more serious matters. And we have two judges, Judge Plew and Judge Walker, that then will hear those cases. I handle all the cases in Judge Plew's courtroom, and Will and Jeremy Reed in our office handle all the cases in Judge Walker's courtroom. And so those cases are going to be brought and tried in a separate manner from all the misdemeanor cases. So as far as an emphasis being placed on the misdemeanor cases, I don't think it's an emphasis so much as we know that every other Thursday the court has docketed time in county court to do a trial, and there better be a trial going. So.
Well, I think your time would be better spent instead of appealing a misdemeanor that a jury has already said made a decision on. That's a waste of Montezuma County taxpayers' money appealing a misdemeanor.
Respectfully, Commissioner Stevens, no, it's not. The reason that we appeal rulings in a court isn't because we're going to change what the jury said about a case. That's not going to happen in this particular instance. I'm assuming that you're referring to Sherry Simmons' case. The reason that we appeal a ruling is because the judge made an incorrect interpretation of the law. That affects every other case that we have in front of that court. And so what we need to do is we need to get an opinion from a higher court. In this case, it'll be our district court, that says whether or not that opinion is one that should stand or whether or not that opinion is one that should be overturned on all future cases. And so when we see the judge making what we determine to be an error in the law, we always are going to put that on a track for appeal. We've appealed, in fact, in cases that we've won, we've appealed decisions of the court. It's important because, again, if we don't appeal those decisions affect what happens in all future cases where that same type of controversy might come up. And so if we don't feel that that's the right way to handle that, if we don't feel that ruling was proper and appropriate, then that improper ruling is going to get applied to every case that we still have coming up. And so based on that, we make a decision about whether or not this is a ruling from the court that we can live with and work around or deal with, or whether or not this is a decision that needs to go to a district court judge so the district court judge can say this is what the law will be when it's applied in this particular fashion. And so to that point, I think that the thought that, why would they be appealing this? I think that it's easy to say, yeah, I mean, there's there's limited amounts of resources. What are we going to do with those resources? I think one of the best things that we can do with our resources is ensure proper and appropriate legal supervision from lower court rulings, because if we get bad rulings, those affect all the cases that come after. So to your point, I would say that one of the things that we're doing by appealing that ruling is ensuring that there's a proper and appropriate oversight for a lower court's decision, and that's always going to be my position, that that's a good use of resources. Right, and just to be clear so everybody's aware, it's not going to affect the decision in this particular case. It won't change anything about what happened with the trial. It won't change anything about what happened with the verdict. But what it does do is it provides a manner in which we can get oversight to say that there's a particular jury instruction in this case that we thought was improperly given. And any other case that comes before us, we don't want an improper instruction going to a jury. And so we're going to make every effort to see that reviewed. And here's the thing, we'll get an answer then. A district court judge can say, yes, that was a proper and appropriate jury instruction, here's why. Or no, it wasn't, and here's why. And then at least we'll know going forward, and we'll be able to, one, better plan around whether or not that instruction is legal, and if it's not, then we know and we don't have to overcome an additional hurdle that's been put in our way.
I have to agree with Commissioner Stevenson. To bring a Class 3 misdemeanor to jury trial looks to me like a physical waste. And then to appeal it, it's doubling down. And if you lose on your appeal, the citizens of Montezuma County have spent all of that money for nothing that shouldn't have been happening in the first place.
Well, let's talk about that, because again, what additional resources are they paying for in that instance? And they've already paid for my staff. They've already paid for us to do our job. We're not
Staff
clocking
could
in.
be dedicated to something more important than a Class 3 misdemeanor.
I tend to agree, and I will tell you that we had a number of other cases on that docket that could go to trial, and that this is the case that was not resolved. And I'm not ever going to force anybody to take a plea. As you know, because there's been articles written about this, amongst other things, but just from our perspective, we offered diversion agreements to the majority of individuals involved in this, including, in this case, Ms. Simmons. She doesn't have to take any offer that we make. And she has every right to take this to trial if that's what she wants to do. We're not going to interfere with that right. This is the case that came up on the docket, and that's the case that's going to get tried. From a standpoint of what resources were used, from a perspective of an appeal, you're right. There's only a limited amount of time. There's only so many hours in a day. But we're going to put in the additional hours to make sure that there is proper and appropriate oversight of county court decisions, because that affects the majority of our case load.
Technically, it's not at any additional cost because the attorneys do it, they're all salary. So, not technically any additional cost for appeals. They put in the extra hours. We don't pay them for it.
But it's part of the job. Just like it's going to be.
That's your prerogative, being the elected official that you are, and I guess we'll find out down the road.
I would tend to agree.
It's either people take a plea, case gets dismissed, or they go to trial. It's not that we have a choice over what cases go to trial. It's how people decide that stuff happens. I don't think the community would be terribly thrilled if we just decided, oh, well, this person is a Class 3 misdemeanor. This person doesn't want to take a plea offer, we're just going to dismiss it. I don't think the community would be very happy if we just started dismissing all these cases that were Class 3 misdemeanors just because people didn't want to take pleas. It's not that, that's where we want to put our focus necessarily, because obviously there are more serious cases, but it's what the track has been put on that we're required to do.
I think that ultimately a lot of people had an opinion about what should or should not have happened with that case in particular. And part of that is exactly the reason why you put these cases in front of a jury. There were a number of people on both sides of this case who felt very strongly about the outcome and had a vested interest in the outcome. The way that we handle those, resolving those differences in our society is we have this system. And this is a system that requires us to take it before a jury and say, hey, if we're going to assert that somebody committed a crime, then we got to prove every element of that offense. And the jury gets to make a determination about whether or not that's what happened.
So I've got one more. I'm not trying to just pile on or anything, but one thing that I've heard comments about, and you may or may not be able to speak to, is not necessarily taking to trial things like this. You explained that you offer a plea agreement and you can't turn down a trial if that's what the defendant wants. But I think a sentiment that I've heard repeated is that maybe, and of course I understand you deal with more information than the general public gets when you make these decisions, but in the more serious cases of assaults, attempted murder, distribution of drugs, or intent to distribute, or however those classes go, I think it may be the opinion that we should probably offer fewer plea agreements.
And I think that to address that, almost every case we're going to make an offer for a plea agreement, specifically because there's a limited amount of judicial resources and a limited amount of time that, one, our office has, but two, the court system has to try cases. And so if we, say, took, and this is a far-fetched idea for sure, but if we said we're not making offers, we're just going to take cases to trial, we would not have the ability to do so. We literally would not be able to, within speedy trial, have a case go to trial, even if we did one back to back to back to back to back, which the court can't handle. We would still be dismissing cases.
I'm going to switch out mics with you.
Okay. Okay. All right. So if we did trials, again, back to back to back to back, as you can see just from our CR case numbers, it's 400 some odd trials. We literally just could not do that many trials in a given year. So we have to make some accommodation for plea offers. And we're going to make plea offers on cases because the system would not work if we didn't. What I think people legitimately can be concerned about is what kind of plea offer is being made. Why is the plea offer that's being made being made? Is it simply because we don't really feel like trying this case today? No, plea offers are made for a number of different reasons. One is you have to assess the level of risk that the individual presents to the community, and that is oftentimes done by looking at what kind of offense was committed and the previous criminal history that the person has. Two, we have to look at whether or not, when push comes to shove, can we prove this case to the satisfaction of a jury? There are certainly times in specific cases where you look at a piece of evidence and you say, this might be a problem for us. And so you do a risk-reward analysis. Is the risk that the jury comes back and says, not guilty, worth the reward of taking the case to trial, or should we attempt to resolve that case via a plea agreement that both sides can be okay with, might not be as happy with, but okay with? And so there is a very fine balancing act that goes into how we craft pleas and what we do, and that's why it's so important to have good people, good attorneys specifically, in the district attorney's office doing the job that they're doing. We want people that are going to be aggressive. We want people that know where the line is. We want people that work within the boundaries of the law. And we want people that can take the time to sit down and think through a potential plea agreement. To address your point directly, Shaq, I think that when we're looking at cases of large-scale distribution, those cases are DOC cases. And knowing that, I think a lot of people think that, and when I see DOC cases, just for everybody out there in the general audience, what I mean is those are cases that should resolve via sentence to the Department of Corrections. When we look at cases of small-scale distribution or use, now we have to make some allowances to think whether or not a rehabilitative sentence is a better option for not just that individual or the offender, but the community in general. And what does taking a possession case to trial mean that what other case can't we take to trial if we take that possession case to trial? You look at those factors too in making a determination about when and what kind of plea you're making. The other thing that we look at is specific instances of crimes that are harm to particular individuals. And specifically domestic violence crimes are high up on that list. And crimes that use a deadly weapon, crimes that result in serious bodily injury. Those cases are also very important cases to get either resolved via a appropriate plea or in front of a jury as quickly as possible. There are plenty of cases, though. I can think of F5 trespass offenses, trespass to motor vehicle, property crimes in which individuals weren't harmed. We should find a way to resolve those cases prior to a trial most of the time. It's not that sometimes, again, it's not that sometimes the person can't say, I don't care what you're offering, I'm turning it down. Then that case is going to be the one that gets to trial. But I think that, again, it's that balancing act of recognizing that there aren't enough judicial resources in the world to try 400 some odd plus felony cases in a given year, or 1,300 plus misdemeanor cases in a given year. They just don't exist. And so why do we offer plea agreements? We offer plea agreements basically because there is no way to try that number of cases. What kind of plea offers we offer, I can talk to you guys about. I could literally take up the 45 minutes that was mentioned earlier. I'm not going to, but I could.
Yeah.
A lot of strategy that goes behind them and goes into them, and a lot of care.
But I'm also happy to talk to you guys if you ever have a question about a specific or individualized case, like why was this offered. I'm also happy to talk to you guys about that. I mean, there should be a darn good reason, and we should be able to provide that.
And is there a certain point on the large-scale distribution where it's no longer the DA's call or the district court's call, but it goes to a federal prosecutor?
So a really interesting question. No, there's no cutoff point where they say, okay, well, it's this amount, so it's going to go to a federal prosecutor. In fact, in a number of cases recently, I can think of some cases that I've been speaking with the drug task force about. There were distribution amounts that we felt like legitimately the Fed should be interested in taking this case, and for whatever reason it didn't generate interest. So now there are problems. We're going to handle those cases. There are cutoff points as far as weight of the drugs that were alleged to have been distributed or that were possessed for the purposes of distribution that dictate the level of charge that we would file in a case, but they don't have any impact on whether or not the federal government gets involved in the prosecution of those cases.
Okay. Well, you've used up 40 minutes of your time, so
5-minute question, guys, come on.
if you no, I appreciate you coming in. I know that Tuesdays are tough for you, but
Yeah, I'll be in
Mondays
court
are
all day
good.
tomorrow.
Mondays are good too.
I very much do. And because here's the thing, it allows me to be here and answer these questions, and I think these questions are, one, important to let the commissioners know, but two, the community in general. So thanks, guys, I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for the description of what you gave to Commissioner Stevenson, because I was unaware of that. It doesn't change the decision that's been made.
Yeah, it's not about trying to.
Ruling on.
It's not about trying to circumvent the will of the people. That's what the whole jury system process is about. It's about ensuring that when they get a jury instruction, i.e. the court tells them this is the piece of law that you have to follow in making your decision, that is a correct and accurate statement of the law.
Right. So, if you guys have nothing else, we'll let you get back to court.
Yep.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I guess Rachel, since we have you on Zoom, I think you were next anyway, so we'll pull you back up to the top.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
You bet.
Yep.
Okay. So do you want me to introduce it, or do you want to, Don?
You can go ahead and run the show there, Rachel.
Okay. So we are looking at, there's one final round of a planning grant for workforce housing through DOLA that we're looking at applying for. This will help us put a few strategies in place that will help put us in line for another grant that's coming up after that, that can be used for implementing those strategies, including purchasing land, helping to pay for other incentives that will help move along some development for workforce housing. And there's a document with the strategies that we're looking at pursuing, and this is something that we discussed with P&Z last week.
And I'm pulling that document up now, Rachel, and I'll screen share it with you.
Okay.
1 second. Or I could just make whoever the host.
I don't know how to host.
No, I got it. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
You're doing fine. Shat can run this over here.
Maybe.
When he lets other people be the host, things happen.
Okay. So the first one that we're looking at it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The fifth one down. It's, I don't know if you can see there. It's establish a density bonus program to increase the construction of units that meet critical housing needs in the local community. So that could look like multiple different things, and that's something. All of these strategies is something that we would hire a consultant to help the planning department with. But this would be a program that would help encourage workforce housing developers to build more dense subdivisions or housing units versus just, one house on a 35-acre lot. So it could look any number of things. Shall I go on to the next one?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay. And the next one is just 2 more down from that, actually. This is something that we discussed on Friday. Now up one. Yeah. So with respect to infrastructure creation of a dedicated funding source to subsidize infrastructure associated fees, specifically related to roadways infrastructure. So we chatted about that on Friday, and I don't know if anybody else has anything to add, but roadway infrastructure can be very expensive, and it can be a deterrent to developing workforce housing. At this point, this is something that a consultant would do, is to look at, how the county might dedicate a funding source or find some funding to help incentivize these types of developments. And all of that would be, it'd be part of the process. You could say exactly what type of development you want to incentivize and what kind of money they might get for putting this in.
So Rachel, would this be obviously available to the cities, the towns, and to the unincorporated part of the county? This would apply for all of Montezuma County, correct?
You can specify, like say if you want to say this is for the 1 mile zone of influence outside of Cortez, Mancos, and Dolores. It doesn't have to necessarily, I believe, be for all of Montezuma County unless that makes sense.
Okay.
Or maybe you want to make it along certain roads or certain areas.
The other thing is the city can't be included, city of Cortez yet, because they're still on.
Correct, but the zone outside of
Correct.
it, which is our zone,
Right.
would be included, like you said, the 1 mile or 2 or whatever.
Influence zone.
Yeah.
Is that because
Correct.
of their lack of audits?
Yeah.
Yep. They're still working on 19.
But it doesn't hurt Dolores or Mancos.
No.
Okay.
And so the commissioners understand this grant would get us a consultant to help us develop these strategies into some type of a plan. But it is a prerequisite for
Moving
funding
forward.
that's coming down from
Yeah.
the American Rescue Plan for land acquisition to address housing. So if you are wanting to move forward with any of that in future years, having some of these strategies adopted is going to be a prerequisite.
Mm-hmm.
And there's
So
one more
without
strategy.
Without this, we are not even.
Not
have
even
the
gonna get in the
opportunity
game.
To submit.
Correct, because it's a
application.
prerequisite, and if you don't have it, didn't go through
You're
it,
out.
you're
Yep.
done.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Okay, so the final strategy is second from the bottom. And that is, let's see, the creation of a land donation, land acquisition, or land banking program. So that could look like many different things. Say you have a developer in the county that wants to put in a development, you could put in some kind of requirement that a certain amount of that they need to dedicate land or cash in lieu of land to go towards workforce housing. That's one idea. Instead of donating land to maybe a conservancy or something, potentially land could be donated by an entity specifically for workforce housing. Something along those lines, and also setting up some money, finding sources of money, and also maybe identifying areas that would be good, beneficial for workforce housing.
And Don and Jane, since this is obviously a planning grant that would affect strategies moving forward, will you please brief the commissioners on input from P&Z?
So P&Z we didn't actually cover number 7 in the discussion at the time. It was just 5 and 14. But they're all for it, for the strategies and a consultant to work with that. Part of the comment was on land banking, that not be held forever. There'd be a timeline set. So within, 2 years, 3 years, that banked land program, that land gets utilized. You don't just bank it and sit on it for 15, 20 years or whatever. That it has a purpose and a timeline, and it gets used and developed.
It has a shelf life.
Because if it's for workforce development, we need it happening
Right.
Yesterday.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
And if you scan through these, we really don't have a lot of roadblocks to circumvent because we haven't put a bunch of roadblocks up in development. So we're way ahead of the game that way, but it's kind of hard to address a lot of what they're looking for because we don't have issues to get around. Only issue we have is the county doesn't own land to be able to offer incentives or, you know, put
Well, we
workforce housing on
we
at a
don't have any
reasonable rate.
utilities that we could offer any incentive
No.
on.
No.
If you're a municipality, you've got the water, you've got the sewer, you've got, you know, property taxes, sale taxes, you can offer up a lot, but we
Well-
can't have the sand district
Right.
do anything, we can't have Montezuma Water do anything unless the county just would pay them to not charge them full price.
And to your point, Commissioner Lindsay, I heard you say septic system. We do charge to inspect the septic, but that's nominal compared
Yeah,
to the
it is.
engineering, and the septic itself, which we don't have any control over.
That would be, well, that would be the only incentive that I could see that we would hold within us is the septic.
Yeah, the
You know,
permit.
that could be, which is not a great deal of money for the system, but maybe the engineering and or the fee, it's not gonna be anything compared to water taps, roadways, anything like that.
Right.
But really, that's the only utility that we oversee it all.
Yeah.
And it's not our utility, it's a privately owned
Right.
system.
It's just a permit that we would oversee.
And it came up about, could the county waive property taxes? Say somebody put in a big workforce housing unit, could property taxes be waived on that for the first 5 years or whatever? And the answer to that is no, you cannot waive taxes, especially considering there's other receiving districts like, you know, fire protection districts, cemetery districts, whatever.
My
But
understanding is.
what the county could do is they could pay the taxes.
Well,
Like
pay them back, a rebate.
Yeah, you could rebate the county's portion.
Correct, and I guess that's where I was headed, was when people look at their tax roll and we waive our portion of it, it's just the one line item that states for the general fund. It's not the entire tax bill.
Not the
because
other 19
those
line
are all
items.
Yeah, and it's not
School
that-
districts, fire districts, whatever, we can't waive those at all.
And in the scheme of things, that's not that much,
It's very,
that big of an impact.
it's pretty small.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, a consultant might give us some ideas to deal with this stuff that, I mean, we haven't had any opportunity to really get, funding sources. They're gonna have to get creative.
And in order for the grant writers to pursue it, they would need a motion and a vote, which you can't do today, but it will have to be recorded in the minutes for them to go after the grant.
Okay. Anything else, Rachel?
No, I think that's it, unless you have any other questions.
No, thank you.
Is cereal soup?
Thank you, Rachel.
That one's still out.
Depends on how long you let it sit in the milk.
Okay, thank you, Rachel.
Thanks.
That's all we got.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate it. Okay, I guess, where are we at? Telecom.
Those three guys back there.
Telecom, come forward, Mr. McClain, with your bids. Or, obviously, this is just a public opening of the bids. No decisions are made today at all.
So they're all in an electronic file. I have bids from Clarity, DataSafe, High Country, NetForce, and TDS, Tango Delta Sierra. So from Clarity, we have a bid, 31 pages.
Yeah, obviously, there's a lot of technical stuff, so.
Well, it looks like you're going to be doing some reading and explaining.
Which is, right, which is your job
That-
to go
that-
back. Well, we can open the bids and
Once
find
you
an
open them, I'll put them in a matrix and
an
hand you the
apparent low
matrix. and-
bidder, but we have to also.
I am opening them right now. I've got to find a price somewhere in these 30-something pages.
What you're scrolling through right now is an actual grid that I put together on requirements. That way everybody was playing on an even,
So you get to go through all of these and
oh,
decide.
Make sure that the checks are.
and I have to do it before tonight's over.
Well, no, you just have to do it by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Right,
I don't think the commissioners mind if you stay up all night doing it.
probably not.
Well,
I saw a number. I'm just looking to see if there's a number. See,
There
it's
is.
growing.
total.
There's still
Like
10
that
more
593
pages to go.
number.
God, the numbers just getting bigger. Would you
Maybe
roll
we
it
should
the other
let you
direction?
Well, what I do know is a couple of them had asked if they could give us bids in the middle of this on all new phones as well, and I said they were more than welcome to put a bid in on them, but probably more than likely we weren't going to be replacing all the phones this next go-around.
So is that an addendum item for everybody?
They all had the opportunity to bid on phones if they wanted to, but part of the RFP process is that it had to work with our current phones.
Trunk proposal.
So some of these bids could be with new phones and equipment, so that'll be up to you to
Could be.
decipher.
It could be, so I'm gonna have to go through all the line items.
So the highest part of this particular bid is $77,000, and that's over
not a
the
month,
course
is it?
of a year. Oh, no.
10 years.
So the next one we have is data safe, and that's apparently only 27 pages, so maybe I can scroll through it a little more quickly. Looks like 73 and 68.
Year 3, it's less. And they're like a 3-year proposal.
So far they seem to at least be competitive with each other.
Jim, well, didn't the city go through this just recently?
They did.
Which company did they choose? I don't remember.
Can I say?
Well, it's on public record who they chose.
So it was down to 2, and they picked High Country Abaya out of Denver, I believe. But I can tell you that their matrix that they put together, there was only a 1-point difference between who they picked and who was next.
So data safe comes out to $45 a month and 2 and one-time charges. Next is High Country. And just to be clear, because we're gonna be asked, even though I see some of these are local, did you reach out and solicit bids from all of the local providers?
I most certainly did.
Thank you.
In fact, I gave them priority right out of the gate. When I put the RFP out, I emailed them a copy of the RFP on the same day.
This is Avaya. I'm going to have to blow this size up because I can't read that small.
So that first one of 77,000, was that 3 years or a year?
Well, I don't know. I haven't looked at them, so I can't answer that.
I think that was a weekly charge, Joel.
But there is definitely going to be
accounting
this
for inflation.
initial outlay for the installation, yada, yada, and then there's going to be that monthly reoccurrence, and that's one of those numbers that's gonna be real important, is that monthly.
Because it looked like it went down every year for the 3 years, which is, Jack's scrolling pretty quick.
Yeah, you got my
But
head spinning.
we
right
obviously
there.
haven't seen these.
No, and I will break them down for you as well.
Okay.
I got a set of trifold glasses here. My eye don't know which part to look out of it, and Shaq's going.
The
like this.
windshield wipers
I thought
on.
you was just a
I'm
little
bouncing
bit,
all over the place here trying to keep up.
I thought maybe Parkinson's was
Got
setting in over there.
I'm right off this eye, about shut now.
Yeah, your
Can't keep
your
up.
optometrist will love you when this is done.
I think, Shaq, is all we need to do is, because we're not making a decision today and you have to go through
We
them
do
all.
have to go through them all, which is what I'm doing. And Jim and I will,
So we've got Clarity, Data Safe.
Avaya.
Avaya.
High Country and Via, I think is what they're called.
All that high country of Avaya is the same
What
thing.
wait, what did you call me?
High Country?
High Country / Avaya?
I think so.
This looks like a lot of small print. Maybe this copy goes to the lawyer.
We get the best review.
Like you guys better order some pizza for tonight.
Tonight's a fair board meeting, Joel. You can come to that. This is Avaya's second PDF, and I still don't. Boy, I hope we don't have an active shooter scenario, because my trigger finger's cramping over here.
I gotta drive to Saguache Wednesday too, and then come back. and
Okay, number next is NetForce with 4 attachments. Holy.
Well, some of them I think are cover letters,
Yeah.
probably. Some are probably references. Obviously, a lot of technical garbage. It's like A is going to be your budget. There it is.
There you go. Total upfront
18,000.
18, total monthly 25. That one's easy to read.
Who is this one?
NetForce,
NetForce.
they're local.
And then next we have TDS.
Keep your eyes right in the middle, focus right there.
I think TDS is out of Wisconsin now, or Minnesota, one of the two, I think.
They sent a spreadsheet, and I'm hoping that it's a little. Well, I like those numbers better than 70 something, but
Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bidders.
That is correct.
Okay.
and again, Clarity, DataSafe, High Country, NetForce, and TDS.
Okay. Well, there you go. You have your work cut out for us.
I'll put together a matrix for you, try to make it a little easier to read without all the technical stuff.
Okay. Thank you.
Happy reading.
Happy reading. All right. Next, we'll go with Fairgrounds.
Get something to open for real.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
Would you kindly Okay, so for the fairgrounds, we have the suppression system bids for the fairground. And explain to me a little bit more about the RFP for this one. Was this for the water line to supply for the suppression system, or is this the suppression system within the fairground itself from the
Yeah, correct. That's what it is. It's what's in the building. This does not include the water line coming from the road to the building. That would be
It's
through
just the suppression system
just the
from
suppression minus the electrical part.
valves.
So
Okay.
after they do the physical work to all that, then we will have an electrician come in, hook up the alarm system to it.
Okay. So we have two bids, it looks like. Mr. Lindsay, would you give us yours, who it's from?
Trying to figure out Cooper Fire Protection. Cooper Fire Protection Services. Total bid price. Well,
That would be the base bid, and that's an addendum.
yeah.
What's your addendum?
So the addendum was after we did the walkthrough, there was quite a few things that needed to be done to pass an inspection. Because we want to get this up to par where it will pass an inspection. So we went ahead and did an addendum, so both bids would be identical to getting the system up to where it would pass an inspection.
Okay. Yeah, no, there's no total. There's a, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 11 line items on the original bid.
Correct.
So if that one is bid the same, they're gonna be 11 line items. And then the addendums are bid in the same way.
Yeah, and that'd be
So-
line item 12 to whatever the last one is.
14. That's what I got.
So we have 18 addendum items, okay?
That sounds correct.
And then, so we have Cooper Fire as one, and what was yours?
This is Advanced Fire Systems.
Okay.
Cooper Fire Systems is where?
Farmington,
Farmington and Advanced?
Durango.
Durango.
I don't think we have any here. Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
That's
No,
local as well.
and our procurement policy does allow a match against competitive states. Because New Mexico allows 5%, we can allow 5% on the one that's out of Durango.
So you don't have a total on that
But-
one there?
But
Is the one out of Farmington paying Colorado wages?
On the addendum?
Looks like it's on everything.
I don't know.
We had that brought up once before on the carpet bid.
I remember that, and I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
But either way, we're allowed to give 5% cushion to Durango if you guys should choose to go that way.
So
And
we'll have
and
to
that
give these.
that is a point, just for those listening on YouTube that may be getting confused right now, because the minimum wage in New Mexico is around $9 an hour, and here it goes up to 12 something at the beginning of the year. So there's a difference in cost there, and that's why the allowance.
If you want to just read them off, we can read them off. Joel, if you want to go to the actual bid form and then leave the addendums for second.
Well, I ain't found the bid form here yet.
That's the bid form.
Oh, I know.
This is the addendum. So it should just say the bid form.
Dun, 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 dun.
Okay,
Bid
starting
form.
with 1.1. Cooper is at, item 1.1 is 324.62.
482.
The next item, 1.2, is 5332.96.
Say that again.
5332.96.
Mine is 5263.
Okay, item 1.3 is $6,260.40.
Mine is 6041.
Item 1.4, $12,412.66.
Mine is 22,558.
Item 1.5 is $5,932.73.
Mine is 8482.
Item 1.6 is 1,020.22.
Mine says removed. It says C addendum 1.
Yes, that was
Okay.
replaced. That was a water motor gong that we're replacing with an actual horn strobe instead, so.
Okay.
we
So do I
adjusted
need to
that.
use this figure on the addendum 1 for that column then?
They should have removed it from 1.6 and we put a new line item on
The addendum.
the
Well,
addendum.
mine just says C addendum 1 for it.
Which
so-
is where it should be. So maybe
Okay.
they didn't
so
put it
you
on the
should
addendum.
have that one.
You'll just
I
remove
see.
it. So item 1.7 is 633.77.
648,
Item 1.8 is 0.
322.
1.9 is 247.33.
Mine is included in 1.2.
1.10 is 4,359.12.
Mine is 2244.
Item 1.1 is, or I'm sorry, 1.11 is 247.33.
Mine is 593.
So once you guys add those up, Justin, then we'll have an apparent low bidder.
Okay.
The addendum items, Joel has a total at the bottom of his. I do not, so the addendum, since it's not part of the base bid, we'll let you guys add those up. Okay?
Just
So
off the numbers you rattled off, Cooper has a lower base bid.
I'll let you guys add those up because I wasn't keeping track of any.
All right.
So we have Cooper and Advanced.
And the addendum bid on this one was 82,813.
And I don't have any total.
Okay.
They're all individual line items.
And then the one thing to just keep in mind with either of these, they do have to put that to a pressure test after they fix the suppression system, so they have to keep it for 2 hours at 200 PSI. And who knows if everything's gonna hold up, because we haven't had water in this thing for years, so, if ever,
Well,
so.
it should have had an air test on it previously.
Hopefully, yes.
I will say it's never had water flowing. Have you?
No.
I don't remember if I ever had that. You?
But just something to keep in mind.
Okay.
So you guys will have a recommendation by the time we get to unfinished business tomorrow?
So we have two bidders. You'll bring us the apparent low bidder tomorrow. And we can deal with that in unfinished business.
Yeah,
All right.
sounds good.
Okay, I guess, gentlemen, if you want to discuss, I'm gonna jump back up to the, I'm gonna go all the way back to the top. Actually, I'm not, I'm gonna go with Region 9 first. What, you guys have anything to add to that board meeting that's coming up? Do you have pros, cons, ideas? I mean, you know, we're obviously not part of the COG.
Well, I just don't want our Region 9 dues to go to 25,000 a year if they combine the two, and
Yeah.
That was
That
obviously my
concerns me.
question, is I don't want the fiscal note to be
Right.
added.
Right
to-
now, we pay roughly 9,000 to Region 9, and we get our money's worth, I
Right.
feel. To join the COG would be 36,000, which we haven't done, which basically you could get a part-time employee for that.
well, I don't want
Working
them
for you
to
every
combine
week.
them and then have it end up $40,000 to belong to both of them as one group.
Or even if they averaged 9 and 36 and ended up charging us 20, it's still,
Right.
what
So-
will we get for the extra
Which is
11,000?
basically my concern also, so I'll bring that to the next board meeting. It's not gonna happen until January. To take this on, because my fear is you're gonna add, you know, one or two more
You're gonna-
positions.
yeah,
for
you're gonna
staff
add
to be able
costs.
To take that, and maybe not, maybe they can redirect it with the fees that the people that were in that. But I can guarantee you, if they're joining them, the people that are paying it are gonna say, hey, we want you all to share in this cost.
Yeah.
I can see that
And
coming
for
also.
people in the COG, it might be a reduction in fees eventually.
So, anything else you want me to take? I mean, you guys are more than welcome to go to that board
That's our
meeting.
biggest concern.
Is the fiscal note.
Yeah.
Well, and I have a few
And Laura,
concerns
she-
above and beyond that. I think Region 9 has provided a great service to the county. I'm concerned if they take this much more on, will that suffer? I don't know.
I'm not sure it'll suffer. I think they're focusing their staff. I think that their mission is pretty clear.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the people that are in, well, I think all of them that are in the COG are in Region 9, have a place at the table in Region 9. So I don't think that would hurt at all. I just don't know.
Yeah, and-
Combining the efforts, I think, is a good idea.
and I don't want to see the policies and the philosophy of Region 9 unreasonably diminished.
Well played.
Would you explain that to me?
There's no explanation. I'm sorry.
Okay. And then, obviously, if we're done with that one, I'll move on to the NCA discussion, which we can't make a decision today, but is there anything else that we need to discuss
I don't think so.
prior to making a decision?
I think we-
tomorrow?
The only thing that I would say is, I mean, I think just in the meetings that we had with Dolores County and then with Ken Curtis today, I mean, what really jumps out to me is the importance of honing down some of these definitions. And I mean, I think
You can't do
without,
that on the outside.
I think that's true. And I think without the definitions, we're asking for trouble.
And I agree with Commissioner Lindsay, if we don't basically step into the game, we're on the outside and are going to be accepting anything that they give to us. So
Yeah.
I think you're saying, if I'm hearing you properly, that it's better to join with Dolores in the fight and DWCD to get the clarifications, because there's,
Well, certainly in going to the table, at least we're able to put our voices
Right.
in and try to get those definitions the way we want them. Now, there's certainly risks involved as well. I mean, when you go to the table, then you're gonna have to give up some things too. But, I mean, then that's really your guys' decision. But I think just in looking at the legislation, the way it's currently written, if it were to pass, I would be very concerned with the lack of
Well, the thing
of
is, we have
context.
no idea how this thing is gonna read once they send it to Washington. They're gonna rewrite this thing
Yeah, that's the
and
problem.
then send it back.
hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
Too much.
Too much. Hopefully not too much.
Okay.
But we're not gonna get anything done looking
If
from
we're
the
not.
outside in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else we need to talk about?
Just got a little hint for you guys for holiday season. If you get locked out of your house or your car or anything, just bend down and speak to the lock in a clear and intelligent voice. Just remember, communication is always the key.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
I'm gonna
There we
throw
go.
a rock through the window if I get locked out. I'm not gonna can't get nobody.
That's the way Joel communicates. He just goes right through.
I'm not gonna take the time to rationalize.
Okay.
Thought I beat you to the punch.
All right. Gentlemen, if you don't have anything else, then I guess we will adjourn the session and we'll deal with the bid proposals tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
We are done.